Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. Yes, this is the In Pit Lane After Party. If you're coming here straight from Channel 31, a very big welcome to you. Channel 31, which in fact is not going to end next week. To everybody's great surprise and delight, we're pleased to say that Channel 31 and Channel 44 Adelaide have received a 3-year extension on our licence, and nobody expected that. That was a major back down that happened yesterday in Parliament from the government. They stepped aside, and thanks to everybody who made that possible, there was a huge response. It was actually a bigger response than we had last year when we were originally threatened. There was over close to 10,000 signatures on a petition, on an online petition. We had lots of support from lots of you, lots of the viewers of In Pit Lane, lots of people who view Channel 31, lots of people in the community, and even people on the other side, on the government side of politics. I know that the Channel 31 particularly wanted to say thank you to Senator Simon Birmingham from the Liberal Party, who apparently got on board and opened a few doors in order to get this decision reversed. So the deal basically is that Channel 31 will be around for 3 years. What this means is we can actually now plan things over the next year or so, including the next series of In Pit Lane. We can actually go out and we can look long term. We can sell sponsorships. We can offer things to promoters in terms of live streams, in terms of putting their action and their information on the screens of Channel 31 and Channel 44 in Melbourne and Adelaide, and of course online here at In Pit Lane YouTube channel and on the Facebook page. But anyway, everybody's joining us once again. We've got a cast of thousands tonight. More, as they say, more stars than there are in heaven. That's it. And we've got all the usual suspects here, as you can see. And just one moment. Is that Dave Stillwell? My God, it is. It is Dave Stillwell who's joined. If not being on tonight's edition of In Pit Lane was enough, he actually joins us here on Full Course Yellow. G'day, guys. G'day, Dave. How are you? And Dave's still on mute. You're still on mute,
That's
Dave.
all right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, viewers. Oh, it's fantastic news. We're almost a Brady bunch, Brett. All right, so we've got two more little tiles there in the corner there, and it's almost a full house. So
I'll be Alice.
Yeah, exactly. She got all the best one-liners, didn't she? So anyway,
she got Sam the Butcher too.
Yeah. Oh well. Let's behave. Let's behave about getting the meat tonight. So
and get down on your hands and knees and scrub the floor.
That's all right. Yeah. Richard really looks forward to cleaning at his place.
The license cancelled.
Yes, we've got hello to everybody who's joining us once again. To Jeff, thanks for joining us again, mate. Much appreciated. Tony is joining us again. Also, Russell, thank you very much. As we said last week, thank you for your support in retaining helping to retain the license in sending emails to your local member. Lots of people did that, and that was one of the reasons we believe that the decision was changed. That it was they suddenly realised that this was not going to be a popular decision, especially when you consider it wasn't going to achieve anything. It wasn't going to save any money. There wasn't going to be a replacement service for at least the next 3 years. And I think if there was ever any doubt that there is going to be an early election, I think that is well and truly out the window now. So ladies and gentlemen, get ready to start your engines.
Rupert mustn't have had his business plan ready, or he's forgotten he lived in Australia. So maybe for his Sky News. Yeah.
Gave up his citizenship a while ago.
Yes, that's it. But not his influence. Anyway, let's talk about some motorsport. Formula One returned last weekend. Thank God, and we saw an interesting race with Max Verstappen coming out on top. And Pete, we'll start with you. What did you think of the race?
I thought it was good. I thought it was fantastic that, like in Spain, they weren't dogmatic with their pit stop strategies. They were flexible. And also there was a bit of niggle between Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo at the start, because Lando was claiming that Daniel was making his car very wide and hard to pass.
Oh my God, he was actually racing. How terrible.
Yes.
No, that's against the rules.
But I thought it was promising that, they were flexible with their pit stop strategies, and they weren't like, this is how it's going to be from the start of the race. They were flexible. I think we need to see more of that.
Well, they weren't flexible enough as far as our friend Mr. Bottas was concerned.
What's your language,
was,
Brett? What's your
yes,
language?
He was not keen at all. And Stuart, I will have to just I'll just have to get Stuart. Stuart, can you switch for us? I've suddenly lost control of my mouse here, so I can't switch. So if you can take over switching at your end, that would be good. Okay, cool. Thanks.
I probably could.
There. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've suddenly lost. I've lost my mouse. So yes, that was going to make things a bit difficult. Yeah, I think Valtteri was far from a happy camper. I mean, and neither, for that matter, neither was Lewis. The only thing about it was, I think the problem with with the racing at the moment is there is sort of an inevitability in terms of when somebody catch up because of DRS. You get that situation where if somebody, I used to say, catching is one thing, passing is another. At the moment, if you catch someone, chances are, particularly on a track like Paul Ricard, chances are you are going to pass them, and you're probably going to pass them fairly easily. And we didn't get that spectacle we were hoping for of like a really sort of wheel to wheel battle between Max and Lewis. Max was trying to find a way past Lewis, and Lewis defending with his light. There was no point. I mean, once they got onto the straight and the DRS was open, it was good night nurse, away they went. Yeah. So that was a bit disappointing.
Well, there's going to be more.
Surprised with some of the tyre strategies. I mean, they could have ran. What was the? I think it's the second of the Red Bulls. He stayed out for the longest. They could have ran a little bit further and gone for some soft tyres and just blown through the field real easy. It would have. Perez was out there for a long time. If they'd kept him out a little bit longer, put him into the gap between the first four and the next one, he could have easily come charging through and played havoc. Yeah,
well, I think that the other problem with Mercedes is Red Bull did the right thing by basically having that split. That split strategy, whereas Mercedes just pretty much went in with a plan and they stuck to it, and that's the one thing that this year certainly exposed. It's not just the pressure that Max has been able to put on Lewis Hamilton; it's the pressure Red Bull as a team have been able to put on Mercedes. And when you look at their strategy, they really haven't come up to. They really haven't come up to muster on a number of occasions. There's a couple of times when they've been looking sort of very second hand.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room though that stood
Brett,
out.
I might
go ahead there, Dave.
Sorry, I probably need to pull the string longer so that my transmissions come through a bit quicker. What I'd observe is that it was turnabout is fair play. Red Bull played exactly the same hand that was played on them by Mercedes, 2 rounds ago at the Circuit de Catalunya. And Mercedes was in the box. They had to respond in a certain window. And they undernut about it and then didn't pull the trigger. What's fascinating for me
your audio's breaking up really bad, Dave.
I'll ditch the headset. Yeah.
Well, while Dave's fixing up his little tech stuff there, I could see the point he was making. Obviously Red Bull were pulling the same stunt as what Mercedes was 2 rounds ago, and therefore they were trying their hand of luck at see how it went for them, and it worked out. And Perez proved in the last round as well too that running long was a good value for him. He was able to cut some lap times, and everyone talks about the undercut all the time and getting onto the new tyre and track position out of it and finding air out in the track where they can cut the times they want to and hit the settings they do. Whereas Perez is very good at running, making best use of his tyres for a longer period of time, running it long and still churning out some better lap times overall at the end of the race, puts you in better position. But look, I want to throw it up open to the forum. One thing that stood out exceptionally like a sore thumb at the end of the race was the top 4 cars were within 10-ish sections with each other. The 5th car was 50 seconds behind the top 4. Now we've always known there's been a difference between that manufacturers and stuff. That's just not a race. That's just That's just 2 teams and 4 cars running around a track.
Well, that's always
That
been.
might
If
as
you
well
go
be
back and look
the
at the
race
history,
at Indianapolis.
if you go back and have a look at the history of Formula One, however, you seldom see those. You seldom see the time when there's any more than 2 or 3. I mean, if you go back and you look when McLaren was dominating, and they might have been against. They might have had Ferrari to run against, and Lotus dominated for a while, and they might have had Ferrari or McLaren to run against. It's very rare that you get that situation where you've got more than 2 or 3 teams that are really right up the front of the field. And
I know,
consistently
but
challenging.
50 seconds? 50?
Yeah.
I
I
never
know,
used to.
I know. I've been watching it just almost as long as you guys, but there's just this disparity, a little bit too much for that one. Anyway, the other thing was, Mick Schumacher's been copying it left, right, and centre in the last few days in the week. Oh, look at Brett's lit up already too. So, and of course he drives for Haas, and they're battling for the wooden spoon, both cars, and sometimes arguably battling against each other to run last. So they've been given some advice. Maybe look at running your own race rather than smashing each other up. But while Mazepin's dad shells out the dollars, and he says who goes, and my son's going to race forever, and I'm going to throw as many buckets of money, Uncle Scrooge style cartoon, as he can. Well, he's going to do it, but that's sort of just the start of a few rumblings. Is Schumacher as good as what he is? Yes, he did win F2, but an F3 previous to that. Sometimes they get to the F1 game that they can't cut it. So the jury's out at the moment. Open it up to you guys. What do you think?
I'd say that the thing to observe about Mick Schumacher is my audio coming through okay? Am I better?
That's
Much better.
Much better. A bit roomy, but you're fine now.
Is that Mick has always done 2 years in the junior categories. He did a learning year in Formula 4, I think German or possibly Italian, won the second season. Stepped up to F3, had a learning year, learnt the ropes, developed his skills, won the second year. Moved to F2, had a learning season, learned how the car operates, how the team operates, made the step the next year, won. So he's got a very methodical way of working through with his management team, with his engineers, with the team around him. And I'd say at Haas, we're not really going to notice the mistakes because they're right down the back of the field. If, all the things line up properly and, a couple of the Alphas have some issues and the Williams have some issues, we could see him make his way through to Q2. But this year, I think, don't really look at the results. It'll be, what does season 2022 look like for Mick Schumacher?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be the proof in the pudding. I think you might be right there, Dave. So you got to give the guy. He's only, everyone's going to jump on the gun. Sometimes they're short of a story, and they're an easy target to a certain extent. But yeah, it's the door could open though. Look, obviously Russell's putting the pressure on Bottas's place at Mercedes, and it's usually the other way around. They're searching for the drivers, but Bottas is under pressure from himself, his own performance, and he's obviously just got to keep mum and behave himself and just follow team orders no matter what they are. If Russell does move across next year, the tip is that Schumacher will go to Williams anyway.
It's certainly Valgeri has come out in the last day or so and basically said that he wants Mercedes to make a decision one way or another sooner rather than later. He's not really keen at this stage to be hanging on with uncertainty, with things hanging over his head. He really wants to know now if I'm just holding up the spot here, warming it up for George to come in, then I'd really like to know about it so I can start planning for my future beyond this year and beyond Mercedes. So the interesting thing is, I mean, where does he go? I mean, if he does get moved aside, and I think he probably will, but then you've got to wonder whether again Lewis Hamilton is going to want somebody like George Russell to come across, because at the moment he's got the perfect number 2. sitting there as he's under no. I mean, remember the last time he had someone who was sort of equal, a similar talent to him. He wasn't a happy chap at all, and Nico beat him.
Hypercar, Le Mans.
Yeah, well, that's. Yeah,
Right,
well, that is an option now. I mean, when you look at all of the teams that are and all the possibilities of teams coming.
Look
up
at
to
all
Le
the
Mans in
factories that are coming
2023.
in next year, or 2023, 2024. German manufacturers, Italian, French, American. You know, I don't think there's a Finnish car company, but you know, maybe we'll see a Nokia out there.
Yeah.
But you know, I think have joked, and I believe our good friends at Radio Le Mans have often joked that Formula One is a great feeder category to the World Endurance Championship. You know, I mean, Mark Webber stepped out of an
Formula One.
Yeah. You know, Mark Webber stepped out of an
Tom's
uncomfortable
probably
situation at Red Bull in 2013 and then went straight into a factory level, you know, LMP1 car with Porsche. You know, we saw Alonso step out of Formula One and step into a factory LMP1 program with Toyota. You know, it's been done before. People have had success.
And the advantages of the Porsches and the Toyotas is they don't leave the ground very often, unlike other brands. But for the Finnish,
you're not talking about you're not talking about Webber's aerodynamics, are you? That he
the Wright Brothers Award.
His acrobats, yeah.
Although it
He
wasn't
flew
just him.
further than the Wright Brothers.
He did.
I think you're correct there, Richard.
Yeah,
I
There's
go to that gap in the spread of the field from the weekend. You mentioned 50 odd seconds there, Doc. Is there a place for an adjusting of the financial cap, tightening it up to bring the leaders back a little bit, or maybe spread around
Next
a little
year.
bit more money to bring the rest of the field forward?
I agree with the
Close
second
the field
concept.
up and make the racing a little bit tighter?
Second concept there, Stuart, for sure, because they've done the concessions in Moto Gp for some of the satellite teams and the up-and-coming new teams, and let's just, it doesn't have to be Moto GP, it could be any sort of racing or motorsport around the world, and giving concessions to let the rest of the field catch up to a certain extent over a period of time. They just don't give them everything in the world that you can possibly do. Because remember, some of these, like Formula One and Moto GP, you got to come back to the concept that it is a prototype. So some of the stuff that they could use could be dangerous. So you've got to keep it within a certain amount of regulations. And sure, also a quick good evening to Paul Shaw as well too. A couple of latecomers. A Mad Cow jumped on board a couple of minutes ago. Hello, gentlemen. So yeah, I think in Valtteri's case, as Brett was saying too, would be if he's a little bit dumbfounded or feeling like he's on an Oasis island, because he is at Mercedes, so it's still an Oasis. Go and have a talk to some of the other bridesmaids over the years. As Dave said, Mark Webber. I'm sure there's Rubens Barrichello you can pick up the phone with and have a check. All those bridesmaids that have been in the teams and number two drivers that are just there for positioning and support. There's plenty of them around the paddock they can have a chat with and say, at least, give them some reinforcement on how to make his decision as well too.
The thing is, I mean, he's in a very good position. You mentioned, Rubens there. I mean, Rubens was very much a professional number two to Schumacher for all those years. Made a very, very good career out of it. Was very well respected in Formula One. I don't think people think, particularly less of Rubens because of his time playing second fiddle to Schumacher. And I think for Bottas, I mean, where does he go? I mean, like in terms of Formula One. I can't see him leaving, and as I said, I don't know whether Lewis is going to be too keen to get rid of him, and perhaps Valtteri just wants to calm things down a bit and not criticise the team quite as openly as he is at the moment, because otherwise they will say, oh look, okay, if you're going to play that game, well, you can go. Mercedes public relations department are notoriously very fickle about and very sensitive to criticism. They don't let it cut through at all. So I think that if he does end up going, wherever he goes, he's not going to be anywhere near the position that he is now, because he's not going to get into Red Bull. He's not going to get into Ferrari. He's not going to get into McLaren. What's left?
Ask Sebastian Vettel. Seb Vettel might want a new teammate.
Yeah.
I think the last person to be go out of that team will be Lance Stroll. So
I'm just talking about Seb's antics. Anyway.
How many points and how many Grand Prix is Bottas going to win if he leaves? Not too many, I wouldn't say.
No, not too many.
Well, wage cut.
What was that?
Wage cut is also going to be obviously there'll be a
big one. I would say.
A wage cut doesn't matter who he raced for. As good as number 2 or a number 1 driver he will become, for whatever team it is, less than the top 2 teams, he's still obviously going to take. And I'm not sure what his disposable income's like or what his hobbies are in life. He might have to cut back on his mortgage or whatever it may be. And if it's just say he's on, I don't know, $4.5 million a year because Lewis is on over 10 or whatever it may be, you may only be getting $1.5 million a year too. I mean, times are tough, first world problems.
He'll be back to driving the Morris Marina.
I'd observe that perhaps after you.
Go, Dave. All right.
I'd observe that there are a lot of the people that we're talking about. They're at that point in their life where just getting money and just getting results are not the main motivators for success or what a successful outcome looks like. I think they have to genuinely enjoy what they do. And I think if you can contrast the attitude and the appearance and the just the general joie de vivre of someone like Romain Grosjean, now that he's transitioned to IndyCar, Kevin Magnussen, now that he's transitioned into Daytona prototypes. Look how much Fernando Alonso smiled when he moved to go and do some IndyCar racing and doing the Le Mans prototypes and the Dakar racing with Toyota. Mark Webber, fantastically relaxed when he made the move from Red Bull in Formula One to sports car racing with Porsche. And again, all of those sports people that we talk about made that transition away from, the elite apex predator, hunting ground that is Formula One, and went to a genuinely supportive environment where, other than just results, you could tick so many more boxes in terms of getting an actual scenario that you want to spend time in and invest in and spend time with those people.
To put a headline on top of it, then Dave, quality of life. In other words, as you
bingo.
Yeah, but well explained. An excellent explanation of all the facets that they lack in their life because they're on the merry-go-round of an F1 circuit. So therefore, they get, as you just said, have a look at Alonso's smile afterwards, and that was replicated in a lot of media outlets afterwards. Paul's got a comment down the bottom there, Brett.
Yeah, well,
hello, Knackers.
Back to the meat works.
As we were pointing out on the news tonight, yes, it was a fabulous weekend. If you were the son of a motorcycle Grand Prix champion, in both 2 and 4 wheels. Jack Doohan broke through in Formula 3, and then we had Ollie Bayliss up at Darwin, and incidentally, the Darwin triple threat was a massive success. That was just, they had the biggest crowd that they've had on Friday and one of the biggest crowds over the weekend. They had the drag racing on Friday on KO and on 7 Plus was fantastic to watch. The Aeroflow Nitro funny cars were just sensational. They put on a great show. Graham Cow and Andrew and his team at Aeroflow, they've gone back to the grassroots of the tradition of drag racing. Is that they're putting on a show. They've got wheel standards, they've got funny cars. The cars are all got names, so the cars have got personality. It was great fun to watch. The time just went like that on Friday night to watch that. And then you had 2 days of pretty good racing. You had the super trucks for the people who like that sort of thing. And as Jim Cornette would say, for the people who like that sort of thing, that's the sort of thing they like. You also have the Australian Superbike Championship as well, putting on some putting on some great races, but also a couple of big crashes, and thankfully, not too many serious injuries. But it was a great weekend. I mean, anybody else who watched Dale on the weekend?
It was terrific. And I even like the trucks, Brett.
They are a guilty pleasure, but yeah,
even the stripped down version, Richard, when there was a bit of bump and run.
Yeah, well, I do it with the lights out and the curtains drawn just so no one can see me.
Yeah, but what about the racing?
Sometimes.
Are you still a fan of the reverse grid then, Richard?
Yeah, it might give me a chance to move up to the front.
Not you. I mean,
I've got work about reverse grid.
Sorry, what was that, Simon?
I'm trying to remember who. I think it might have been Tiff Nadell was giving his opinion on Formula One, and he said the sport as a whole cannot, motorsport as a whole cannot complain about a lack of overtaking when the format of a weekend is that you go out for a couple of hours for practice and you go round and round and round and round and round and figure out how to make your car as fast as possible. And then we put all the cars on the track at once and send them round and round and round to see who's fastest. And then we line them up on the grid from who's fastest to who's slowest. And then we wonder why there's no overtaking.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have a look at it, I mean, Speedway in Australia traditionally has had lots of reverse grid racing, and it does put on a hell of a show, and they're now even at the FIA level in Formula 3 and Formula 2, they are reversing at least the top 10 in a number of cases, and getting, and that means you get different people coming through, like Jack Doohan and those people coming through, different people winning different races, and you really see the talent there because whoever is fastest for that first session, is going to start from 10th place, and they're going to have to come through. And if they get up and win, it's a fantastic result. But it also gives them more skill involved because they've got to find ways of passing people. They can't just get to the front and say, okay, well, we raced to the first couple of corners. I'm in third now. I'm not going to get past him. We'll just hold position until the end of the race, or hope that we can make a jump in the pits.
We got a little bit of a surprise when we were doing some full coverage back in 2019 with the ARG meeting at Sandown when they pulled the Lotto top 10 where you drawed the ball out again to find out what position on the grid you get.
Yeah, that one wasn't quite the success.
No, and I think we were just standing there in trepidation and a little scared on who could go where because someone's going to take someone out before they get to the first corner.
Just getting back to the Darwin supercars almost shot themselves in the foot.
When?
By giving Nick Pearcat the tyre pressure penalty. To me, a penalty like that, which they did in the end, they gave the penalty to the team rather than the driver. A penalty like that should be given to the team if that's a rule and a rule's a rule, but it shouldn't be given to the driver because it doesn't mean anything to fans. I mean, they want to increase their fan base, and I don't think that's the way to do it. That
was the outcome.
Yeah,
that was the outcome. Was that as was explained, was that
I said almost shot themselves in the foot.
But it's a recognition. It's the difference between a technical penalty and a sporting penalty. If it was, the car had a wheel that was the wrong size or it had the wrong compound tyre on it and it wasn't in compliance with the technical regulations, well, then you get disqualified from the event. Whereas this was a sporting penalty, as in failed to have the correct tyre pressure as stipulated in sporting regulations. Yeah. It was proven that he got no advantage from it because they actually changed the tyre before the car went into the race. And this was explained, I think, by Adrian Burgess, the next day.
It was. But they were during the race, they were considering...
Yeah.
During the race, they were considering giving him a time penalty rather than the team a penalty. So they almost shot themselves in the foot.
Yes, but justice prevailed, And as was pointed out, Brad Jones has spent an awful lot of time in stewards' hearings making his case, and it would appear that he made his point, perhaps not eloquently, but certainly not succinctly, but certainly got his point across, and I believe the correct outcome, given the nature of the breach was achieved. So kudos to the judiciary.
VJ is one of those personalities that's in the paddock that is very very good at like a few others, like Mr. Burgess originally, and Roland Dane, and Tim's a little bit more pacified, a little bit more passive aggressive, but there's a few of them out there that Barry Ryan we discussed last week as well though too. They all have a personality on getting their point across to the relevant authorities and their opinion on what penalty they should be receiving for it and who else might need to be slapped on the wrist at the same time.
Yeah, we also saw on the weekend, with the results, Chaz Mostert put in a great drive on the Saturday to take the win, but he was certainly helped by the unusual, the very untypical stuff up in the 888 pit stop. But once again, Shane van Gisbergen coming through again. You'd have to wonder how long sort of Shane can sort of hang around in Australia, and he doesn't seem to have that drive to sort of to get overseas. I know he wants to drive lots and lots of different cars and race at some of the world's great circuits, but he seems to be just happy getting out there. He just loves the sport, but he's so damn good. You just think what could he do if he just sort of got out of these things and headed overseas and got the right drive? What on earth could he do? Because he's obviously a great talent.
Well, his adaptation skills are better than everybody else. But other than Chaz and SVG are both the standouts as far as adaptation to be able to get into a car and be able to drive the wheels off it as quick as anyone else that drives in that particular style of car at the same time. So yeah, and it was a shame COVID hit when it did, because Chaz lost his BMW contract, and I think that was by mutual agreement. That was time to split. It was, and he couldn't leave Australia to do it unless he went over permanently, and he didn't. And he had his ties here in Australia where he wanted to keep racing supercars. SVG's obviously through 888 Racing has outlets worldwide as well, though too. They're not just bound by Australian borders, but he's obviously at the moment suffocating within our big island that we live on too. So. Yeah, it's as you said, he's got to probably make it. If anyone's been tapping him on the shoulder, Brett, he's got to bite the bullet soon and go over there and enjoy the racing, whatever he wants to do, while he's still in the prime of his life, rather than just going back to New Zealand while the bubble's open and do some speedways and get it and say, sorry, mate, you're prone to hurting yourself or a collarbone or breaking a bone. You're going to have to come back and take it easy. So. Yeah, good idea. But Chaz could do the same. I think they've both got maybe not transitioned. They're both not lucky enough to work for a guy called RP at the moment, Roger Penske. However, they could. I'm sure if they put their wares out there, they'd have a few people that'd be interested in their services.
I'm just wondering about whether sort of Chaz's decision to re-sign with Walkinshaw Andretti United is because of that, particularly that United tie-in, because obviously they're with the Zach Brown tie-in and with the possibility of United getting more heavily involved in the higher levels of sports car racing, whether that's something that may have come up in conversation, that for the opportunities that might come for Chaz overseas as a result of staying with that team, because as you were saying before, he raced very successfully with BMW. He won over in the States and in his class in LMGTE and GTLM over there. So he's a very good driver, and apparently BMW had a very high opinion of him. Speaking of the BMW, I don't know if you saw today the practice sessions for the Spa 24 Hours, and the new BMW, with the particularly ugly front on it, was the fastest, but that probably doesn't mean a lot, because they're not going to run at Spa, and they're probably not running they're not running particularly to BOP full regulations at the moment. But it's encouraging. I mean that the car is out there and it's running fast, and that'll make its debut fairly soon, I would imagine.
It's one of the few cars that I am desperate for them to put it back into its prototype semi-concealed livery when they first did the unveil, because that would, as I said, I have to say, these opinions are my own and do not reflect those of any potential automotive groups I may or may not be party to. But yes, the current G Series M3 and M4 front styling is very avant-garde, shall we say. But certainly that program for BMW is very, very critical. We've seen a lot of the German manufacturers in GT3, Porsche is, they are the beacon of customer racing. Audi Sport picked up essentially in the same vein when they kicked off with the R8 LMS in 2007, 2008, I think. And of course, Mercedes has really, really picked up the customer racing side of the business with the GT3 and GT4 spec cars built by HWA in conjunction with AMG. BMW been pretty successful on the GT4 side of things. The Z4 GT3 was a pretty popular car. When they moved to the M6 GT3, they actually built that car as a GT3 car towards the very end of the car's road car production lifespan. So that car, I don't think, has been in production, that I've forgotten the F code. I think it's been out of production for about 2.5, 3 years now. So while it's been a great, solid car, the customer uptake on them hasn't probably been to BMW's liking, but also it hasn't really reflected what's in the showroom for BMW. With the new car, they've stepped back down from the 5, 6, and 7 series cluster down to the 3 and 4 series cluster. The M3 and now the M4 Coupe has always been, the halo car for most of BMW's customers. It's a smaller capacity engine. It's the 3-litre twin-turbo straight 6 rather than the twin-turbo 4.4-litre V8 that we've seen previously. And again, an all-new styling platform for BMW, and it was unveiled even before the road car was unveiled. So it's a very concurrent program. It'll have much better lifespan. And I think now that, the DTM money is gone because there's no need to sponsor those, Group 1 prototype, basically touring cars anymore. It should bode well for a good customer racing engagement from BMW. But obviously the announcement a week or two ago that they're also getting in on LMDH in North America predominantly in the IMSA WeatherTech series does indicate that BMW is now focused back on professional level prototype racing as well as customer level GT racing. So, kudos to BMW for, improving their product offering. But the proof will be in the pudding to see how many customers they can get buying it. And as we mentioned on the show earlier, Brett, Audi just ticked over, it was 137, 138 of the second generation Audi R8 LMS. That's a big hurdle for BMW to meet up to. But I'm sure the guys from BMW and Motorsport will be up to it.
Yeah,
well,
proof in the pudding there.
The M3 having a V8 never made sense to me. It was like, it's the big engine, the hero engine, that goes in the big car. The M3 was always this light, nimble thing.
Yeah.
Longhurst.
M4, yes, but not M3.
An M3. It was amazing.
I will take issue with that remark, and I will show you how you're wrong with 2 words.
See the map behind you. Yes.
Z4, GT3.
Ugly.
Tiny car, big engine, all the noise. You're wrong.
I'm going to go there.
You're wrong.
I'm going to swing
You're
the
wrong.
clue hammer.
You're wrong.
The last
You're wrong.
good-looking BMW was the Z8.
My family is actually we have one of the very few Z8s in Australia. So we'll have I believe there's a BMW car club or BMW drivers club. Please don't hurt me, people from those 2 different clubs. There will be a car display in August we're trying to organise to get the car out for. So it's a beautiful car, but that's very much more a cruiser than a bruiser.
Can we have a camouflage shot maybe for next week, Dave, if you join us on FCY, and if you just a sort of a rough pick of it, just a teaser.
Everyone knows what a Z8 looks like. It's beautiful. It's modeled off the old 507 Roadster.
Yeah, I know, but like a teaser of your one. If you said you're going to put it on display later on in the year, so it'll be just a taste of it.
I'll go back through my Facebook photos. I've probably got one in there.
Awesome. That'd be good. Just off the subject, Stuart, what's your transformer name? I saw you turn into a green BMW before, and now you're turning into you're going somewhere else. There you go, turning into a woman in a blue and white car. No, I'm joking. What is? Yeah, there you go. It's got the, that is just an awful
BMW Z8 next to its parent company car.
Anyway, we can look. We can all agree to agree because it's everyone's got different opinions on what they like and what they don't like, I suppose.
Anyway, we'll move on. There we got Formula One again this weekend. So the cars hit the track tomorrow. So I think we've got three races in a row in Formula
more.
One. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We've
it's
also
going to be a big month.
We also had some Moto GP on the weekend as well too.
Yeah, so let's talk about Moto GP
Brett,
first, because before we run out of time. I didn't actually get to see Moto GP, and it's funny. I mean, Dave mentioned our friends at Radio Le Mans and Midweek Motorsport. Nick Damon said last week's Midweek Motorsport, I'm not a betting man, but if I had money at the Saxon Ring, I'd certainly be putting it, despite his current form, I'd certainly be putting that money on Marc Marquez. Well, it's a shame you're not a betting man, Nick, because if you had been, you might have won yourself a good bit of spending money to spend on the bike or something, because he did it again.
Sorry, I hate with my hands. I've run out of fingers 11 times. 11 years straight, Marc Marquez. It's actually hard to believe he's been racing in MotoGP because, as you said, time flies earlier. 11 times he's won at the Saxon Ring there year end, and I think that might have been a big part of his motivation going out to race, even in practice and qualifying on the weekend just gone. And yeah, geez, I reckon you would have got some awesome odds, Brett. I'd probably throw it out there and say, yeah, thanks Jimmy as well, Casilla there. Great show. We've got Dave on board tonight, so we've just got an extra spice of life, which is fantastic. And it's always good to have another opinion or another point of view on stuff. Honda has got their mojo back to a certain extent, and that's only because Marc Marquez didn't come off the bike last weekend. So getting towards the end of the race, about 4 or 5 laps to go, he was twinging, as you said, Brett. Your mate didn't watch much of the race, but he was having a couple of little minor tank slaps. Dave might know what that means more than other people. So I thought, geez, he's pushing his luck. But he had to break Oliveira. Miguel Oliveira was the winner from the round at Paul Ricard, where the F1s have been now. And he was pressing all the way to the end. He was within a second all the way to about 3 laps to go. And finally, with about 2 laps to go, he broke yes, all right. I'll leave that one alone. Thanks. Good point. It could be satisfying though with more than a couple of fingers. But anyway, getting back to it. So yeah, Mark stayed on the back of the bike. He put his head down, tail up into the gear, and proved all the criticism and all the pundits wrong, and took it home. Mick Doohan even gave him a call afterwards in the last couple of days and congratulated him and said it's good to see him going quite well. And Mick's job in the HRC paddock is drinking coffee. That's his official title, coffee drinker. I think aficionado. Sorry, I should say. It was the first round at the Saxon Ring where they had asymmetric tyres. So for the technically minded motorsport fan out there, that means you've got the tyre on one side, which is a different compound to the other side, which accounts for more turns on one way than it is the other, so they can have more grip towards the end of the race and don't bin it in the kitty litter. And congratulations to Marc Marquez, Oliveira second. Jack was thereabouts all the way through the end. His teammate Bagnaia went with a different compound and didn't quite hang on to that 4th spot that Thriller Miller was in, and Bagnaia grabbed him. But he's up. Bagnaia is 99 points. Jack's 100 points now in the championship, with just check over the half season to go. Just quickly, Brett's put it down there in the graphics down the bottom, so thank you, Brett, for announcing that. If people can see it already, the Japanese Grand Prix has been cancelled. Now, we all know how controversial the Olympics is going to be in about just over 4 weeks' time. And because of what's the well, the bastard that Brett says it is, that we will not be having a Moto GP over there, which also impacts the Australian GP, which means that now we will probably unlikely have a Moto GP here in October in Australia as well too. That's the fallout from it, because we've got
they're saying that they're saying they're replacing the Japanese Grand Prix with the rescheduled US Grand Prix, and they've moved
Americas.
the Thai. Yeah, they've the circuit of the Americas, and then they've moved the Thai Grand Prix. So they're still thinking of coming about, into this region. So whether sort of we go on the back or sort of in around the time of the Thai Grand Prix, but there was the announcement I saw in the story I saw, there was no mention of the Australian Grand Prix at all.
It was in my one, and the feedback I've seen, and they said straight out it was going to be due to the regulations, to the quarantine period time that they have to be in Australia unless they get exceptions from the government, which is the same boat as what the Formula One is, or an airplane. Just quickly before we get onto the sideshow Bob stuff of it, congratulations to Valentino Rossi for the VR46 Academy. They have just signed a deal in the last 24 hours with Ducati, so that's who Rossi used to formerly ride with before he went back to Yamaha, and they will be entering Moto GP next year with two of the Rex, what we call them here in Australia. Luciano Cecchinello, I think, is dropping out. His team, he's handing over his two entitlements over to the VR Academy 46, and they'll be running in Moto GP next year on Ducatis, which is a bit of a call out because Ducatis suddenly said straight away, oh, wouldn't it be fantastic if Valentino was on a Ducati again next year? There's no whispers for that. So I think he's just going to run two of his Academy riders in Moto 3, Moto 2, and also Moto GP. So that's fantastic news.
Well, Valentino was also announced that he's going to be doing some sports car racing with AF Corsa. Now, the interesting thing about in GT3, the interesting thing about running with AF Corsa is, of course, they're the team that have been sort of given the gold ticket to run the Ferrari hypercar program. So I mean, I know it's a big step, but we know that Valentino has talent on four wheels, and you wonder sort of like if the performances in GT3 are good and he can come up to, just from a marketing point of view, imagine Valentino Rossi in a Ferrari hypercar at the 100th running of the Le Mans 24 Hours. I mean, they'd be spilling across the border like nobody's business. I mean, at the moment, the stands are full of Norwegians and Danes and Dutch and Englishmen. Very few French ever turn up to Le Mans, but suddenly they'll have in a couple of years' time, they'll have so many Italians there as well. The 2023 and 2024 Le Mans are both looking like just absolute highlights. Almost to the stage where you've got to say, well, you really have to be there. They will be just such big events.
Okay,
refer my previous comment about quality of life.
Yeah, it's certainly everybody who's running that more relaxed schedule, more relaxed style, better safety and all the rest of it. But I think that sports cars, the revival has just been incredible. And when you look at the only thing we've heard about is that like Bentley have basically ruled out, which is unfortunate. I mean, it would have been nice for the 100th anniversary for Le Mans if there had been a Bentley there to sort of try and recreate the first win that they had, but they won't be there. We still haven't heard the official word from General Motors in terms of what they're doing with the LM Daytona project for the WeatherTech sports car series, whether it'll probably be a Cadillac brand. Everyone's sort of saying that it's going to happen. They just haven't got around to announcing it. Then it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with the GTE thing with the Corvettes. The Corvettes are such a huge part of the history of Le Mans. I mean, and they are the most popular team there. I mean, just when you go, there's just the crowds, the flags, everything. There's just so many people that are just so heavily into that Corvette team and absolutely love those cars. And it'd be it'd be a real shame if they decided, that they, because of the change in regulations at IMSA, if they decided that they weren't going to run a GTE entry at Le Mans for the in future, because Corvette would be very much missed.
So I think with that one, I think that's been covered off, if not with an interview with Doug Feehan, then with the GM motorsport customer racing, sports car racing manager, whose name escapes me, but she's very well credentialed and comes from the GM factory side of things. And again, this is content that's available via Graham Goodwin's Daily Sports Car, Marshall Pruitt's Racer.com, and also through the good folks at Midweek Motorsport and Radio Le Mans. But the C8 GTE car was never built specifically to, the current model Ferrari 488 and the Aston Martin Vantage twin turbo V8, where they can, with a conversion kit of engine and bodywork, switch between GTE, GTLM in America, and GT3 or GTD in America. Because the C8 was never built that way, it was never designed for privateers to run. So it's very much a professional level car that you could BOP it with some technical changes, air restrictors, changes to the aerodynamics, changes to the wheel sizes, but then you've got to add in ABS and traction. They already have traction control. Then you've got to add in ABS. That fundamentally changes the manner in which the car will behave. So I think they've said that IMSA will allow the C8 to run in the new GTD Pro category, if that's what it's going to be named, with essentially an IMSA spec BOP. But those same cars, or very, very similar ones, will still be eligible for the WEC and indeed the European Le Mans Series, where GTE spec cars are still welcome. But as we kind of hinted at in the show earlier, Brett, the days of GTE as the pinnacle of GT sports car racing, you would have to reflect the ACO is going to have a very challenging time attracting manufacturers to that formula when they're already trying to get everyone into LMDH or Le Mans hypercar. BMW was in and pulled out, Ford was in and has pulled out. Aston Martin's removed their factory pro operation and now only running GTE AM. I'd say Ferrari's never run a factory pro level team in GTE. There's the C8 now. Even more likely to get mistaken for a Ferrari by the man in the street. I think, and Porsche as well is in the situation where they're in the process of developing the 992 generation FIA GT3 car, because they've just obviously released the 992 generation GT3 Cup, which is an absolute weapon of a thing, with a swan neck rear wing, 13-inch wide rear wheels, 12-inch wide front wheels. It's basically a mini GT3 car for half the price. And those were running within comparable pace of BOP'd FIA GT3 cars at Sebring at the opening round of the Carrera Cup North America. Porsche's in a situation where if they're going to build another 992 generation RSR for GTE and GTE AM, that's a fairly big investment at the same time that they're coming on board with Le Mans Hypercar, along with the other Volkswagen and Audi group brands. Audi's committed to Le Mans Hypercar. And just on the note of Bentley, I did see a report somewhere where they might look at doing just a single car, because the interesting thing about the Volkswagen Audi group in terms of their engagement with Hypercar is that with LMDH, is that the base chassis, so the structural underpinnings, are one of the new generation LMP2 cars. All that changes on top is a bodywork set and a powertrain. Now, for those not familiar with the Volkswagen and Audi group of companies, there's a huge number of brands that share actually quite a small number of powertrains. And the one that keeps getting mentioned is the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that's in the Continental GT3 car, It's in the Bentley Bentayga. It's in the Audi Q7, the RS6, I think. It's also in the Lamborghini Urus, the four-wheel drive, the
Popular engine.
Porsche Cayenne. It's, and as we've seen, turbo, V8 engines are very popular for high-level motorsport usage, GT3 and in GTE, and it wouldn't surprise me if a powertrain that is common to most of those manufacturers is something that ends up, and when it's in the Porsche, it gets a Porsche valve cover on it, and it gets the Porsche bodywork. When it's in the Audi, it gets the Audi valve cover and the Audi bodywork. And when it's in the Bentley, it gets the Bentley valve cover and the Bentley bodywork. Which, if we cast our minds back, was 20 years ago now to the LMP1, the Bentley Speed 8 was effectively a closed-top Audi R8.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
LMP 900 car. So there are options available. We hear rumors about Lamborghini joining in LMDH. But a lot of it, I think, will revolve around the marketing spend in the North American market.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, the thing is, the IMSA regulations, that decision.
Thank you, Stuart.
That decision about a gorgeous car. I mean, I've been lucky enough to see it in the flesh a couple of times.
And Bentley still have those, and they still turn them over and warm them up every couple of months.
Look at that! Thanks for the graphic there, Stuart. That is just outstanding. They're absolutely gorgeous car. I mean, that period of time was just fabulous looking cars, and our graphics guru doing his best work as usual. Thanks, Stuart.
So it'll be interesting to see. Certainly, it's very exciting for the future of sports cars, and IMSA certainly got it right with their.
I've got the background
to base.
I was going to say, and thanks for the quick history lesson as well too. There, Stilly, you forget half all that stuff that you just mentioned before because it just comes in one ear a while ago and comes back out. So it was a great.
Big news.
We were all Dumbos tonight, yeah. But no, it was great. Thanks for all the reminders there that you just reinforced again.
That
exactly
really,
like that.
Yeah, that really does sound like the European version of an LS1. It's in everything in Europe.
Don't mention your overhead valve engines. It's much better.
And everyone wants to put it in everything as well too. It doesn't matter. Let's not go there. That we could get really off subject. Brett, could you just run that package on your Franco Cozzo as usual, please, mate? The Franco Cozzo, was it?
Yes, di volete comprare il Franco Cozzo per risultare a un supercar.
Thank you. We do it off air usually. I just need you to run the package tonight on air because as you have down there in our graphics, as I have as my lower third as well too. We've got anyone got? Well, look, it's going 111 million. They sold for a few years ago, the supercars. Just wanted to point out though that Brett says there's supercar interest, etc., and we all know the interest it pays. Two things that are very important about this. They have the 5 parties that are interested have all had to sign disclaimers, so they can't talk about it. And number 2, don't forget, teams still have a 35% stake in it as well too. So there's other parties that will have a vested interest and an opinion on who can't buy it, and who wants to go in as a coalition as a buyer. So there you go. Will Morris and Adderton get together? Will they do it separately? Scapey's trying to get all the boys to get the boys club again together like he did last time and make it happen. Throw it out there.
Yeah, and you'd have to think that I've heard whispers that the name Cochrane could make, especially with Scapes plans, that the name Cochrane might be raised again because he's probably not too welcome in AFL ranks at the moment because the Tasmanian Premier has said in Parliament today that the good people of Hobart should head out to the football on the weekend when North Melbourne play the Gold Coast in Hobart of all places, and they should get out there and they should they should boo Tony Cochran. As he said,
Well,
they should good-naturedly
Brisbane,
boo
I've got
Tony
the footy,
Cochran.
I've got the footy in the background here. Brisbane's having a good night. They're winning 94-50 against the Cats. So yeah, it's a good night for talking about Mr. Cochran, and they're winning up there and up in Brisbane, Vegas.
Well, shouldn't North Melbourne be temporarily known as very, very, very South Melbourne if they're playing in Tasmania?
Yes, I think so. I think they should be known. I think they should change their name to the Dodos, because I think they'll soon be extinct if they keep going the way they're going.
I think it's interesting. We talk about a market valuation of the sport in circa 2011, I believe it was, when Archer Capital bought the 65% stake in the business. You know, that's when IMG sold out, and obviously the teams relinquished a large amount of their stake. That was one of the big funding things that they used to pay for the investment in the what was then known as the car of the future architecture, you know, which was the first wholesale revolution of the sport at the end of 2012. You know, at that point, you know, mainstream TV broadcast with Channel 7, very large manufacturer backing, manufacturers still manufacturing cars in Australia, and at the outset, you know, a number of emerging brands coming in. So at that point, when you look at, you do your, you know, evaluation, you do your due diligence, and Tim Miles from Miles Advisory, who was the advisor back then pricing it, he's also the advisor assisting the sale process this time. Miles is Tim is a very good motorsport competitor. Obviously does a lot of work with McElroy Racing out of Queensland. But what was interesting is that you base your valuation of business on 5 years of EBITDA, and the 5 years leading up to 2011, even with the GFC, were quite positive. Very good broadcast package on Channel 7. Growth in the internet space, growth in the international broadcast space, and everything was looking rosy. Fast forward 10 years, we've seen the revenue from the TV broadcast shrink massively in the 13-14 period, where Channel 7 was kind of a carryover broadcast for 2 years before the Fox and Channel 10 era from 2015 to 2020. This time, there is a new broadcast deal in place. There continues to be that battle about, what's the right ratio of subscription versus live free-to-air access. I think the Darwin round certainly speaks to the fact that Channel 7 and Supercars Media and Fox have kind of gone, we need to stop being adversaries and, minimise our production costs. So to see that, combined broadcast team working together so well was quite positive. But then to look at where the brand is now, we've got minimal in the way of factory funding. We've seen one of the heartland brands of Australian motoring basically evaporate in a short space of time. We have uncertainty over the cost potential of the Gen 3 architecture. Supercars has held quite a lot of the technical specifications of the package very close to their chest, and Paul Morris has made no bones about the fact that he wouldn't be wanting to become a team owner at the present time because no one can tell him what it's going to cost him. So I think, when you consider all the impacts over the last 10 years and the outlook of the sport and what it's spending and what the last 5 years have been like, yes, it looks like you've, dropped, 50% in value, but it's a reflection of the state of the sport. How would someone value the NRL in 2021 versus 2011?
Depends on how badly the players are behaving.
A lot less now than it was 10 years ago.
That, Dave, is relative to how badly the behaviours are behaving on Mad Mondays. Let's see how many times they hit the headlines for their indiscretions, whether they're relieving themselves in the hotel foyers or hallways, or they're out the back of the drinking in the cricket nets beside the grounds. There's a lot of factors.
It'll be interesting to see how that all pans out, and particularly Adderton's comments was like, I only want to get involved if we cut out all of this, accommodating all these teams wanting to do different things. Like, no, you need a benevolent dictatorship You know, as much as we bemoan, you know, Bernie Ecclestone's control of the media in Formula One, if nothing else, he elevated that sport from what was essentially a garagisti series in the 1970s to become the world's premier sporting product, particularly of the motorsport variety.
Hang on. Ask a question on that. The only person who's done that for supercars in Australia is Cochrane.
Tony Cochrane. Yep.
And
Yeah.
okay, well, the thing is,
so
if you're the
coming back to
CEO,
where we started from, he'd still be popular in the category if he could actually get the category to survive. Right now, with how little media coverage there is, are they going to survive?
diplomacy is when you're a CEO, you've got to have it in your diplomacy. You've got to, as you say, the dictatorship which is just before mentioned. You've got to be able to rule with an iron fist. I'm going to put this in layman terms a little bit. To obviously make the decisions and be firm on them and stick to them, but also say that I am open to listening to your ideas and I will adhere to them and we'll bring them forward and embrace them, etc. Just don't do anything about them. But at least say you're open to suggestions and open to opinions and open to advice. Doesn't mean you do anything about them. The problem is with the dictators in the past, they always say, oh, etc. It's my way or the highway, and they get slammed. And that's what some of Bernie's boys' problem was for many, many years. If he had been a little bit more, his people skills, his PR had been a little bit better, he would have been liked a lot more.
The thing was,
I'd say if we can't get Tony Dow from BTCC, sorry, you go.
The thing that Tony Cochrane had, and that Tony Cochrane will bring back to it, is Tony Cochrane didn't come from a traditional motorsport background or a sporting background in general. Tony Cochrane came from an entertainment background, and that's why, I mean, lots of people had, I've said this before, lots of people had problems, in the media in dealing with Tony. We never had any problems at all, because I think we're coming from the same sort of area in terms of, Tony understood this is show business, and that's the way he ran the thing, and that's the way he promoted it. And it probably needs that injection of oomph again, because you can't go back and just keep going on. You can't rely on the old Ford Holden tribal battle anymore, because that's gone now. That's finished.
And Tony understood relationships, Brett.
And he was very hands on. And I've told the story before when at Sandown we were walking on. We were walking back to the supercars truck there. For an interview for the show, and as we were walking back, Tony said, hang on, can you hang on a second? He left me, he walked over and he saw a family coming through the pits at Sandown, a couple and a baby in a pram and a couple of young kids alongside, and he sat there with them for about 10 minutes and just basically said to the guy, look, fantastic, you're a supercar fan, fantastic, great to see you, but at the moment I want to talk to you. And he spoke to the wife and he said, what can we do to make this more attractive to you and the kids? And she came up and she said, oh, the kids liked it, but they're a bit bored now and there's nowhere to... And he went straight back into there and he said he said, we need to do this and this. He said because he said, we want to drag in... He helped clean up Bathurst, the whole situation up at Bathurst, because he said, we've got female clients, female fans, families... And the women are saying, we don't want to come to Bathurst because we don't want to be up on that cesspool up on the mountain. Actually, I've got that up as well.
Unbelievable. And anyone who's got kids as well too, and as you said, bringing in families, one of the best things they did, and they incorporated into the supercar show they took around Australia, was when they brought the Lightning McQueen playground as well, though, the cars. And
the Pixar fan zone.
Yeah, the fan zone. And you know what? I took my little girl along and tell you, I couldn't get away. I couldn't go and watch a bloody HQ Holden sedan support race because I had to go bloody over to the fan zone that Dave just mentioned. So, and that's what he did. As I said, he knew relationships, Brett. He knew what the importance it was. It wasn't just dismissing him out of the way because they're just a 5%er in the sport and they don't matter much to most people. They matter. Everyone matters to him, as he said. And the other thing was he was open to suggestion and ideas, and he was an entertainer. And he said, right, how do we make it a full experience for everyone to enjoy for the day, not just everyone that's been coming along because they've been dragged along and they're not a motorsport fan. Let's make it have fun for everybody.
And that's the thing about cars now is that, you know, and they've said it themselves, is they're not so much a category anymore. They're eventually at the moment they're more now a media and event production company. They create events, and then they cover those events themselves, and that's going to mean something. The interesting thing will be the new players in the subscription TV game. As we said last week, with Paramount Plus coming in and bidding on and winning the rights to Australian international soccer, they've basically put up their hand and said, along with people like Optus Sport and a number of others, they put up their hands and said, we are in this game and we want sport, because sport is the driver of pay TV. That's something like 72% of people said that the only reason they subscribed to pay TV, or the principal reason they subscribed to pay TV, was because of their access to sport. It's the only reason I got KO. I mean, I wouldn't be paying for any damn television service on a regular basis, but, you know, I'm paying for KO now because I always said I just want the sport. I don't want the lifestyle channel. I don't want the country music channel. I just want, you can give me, if you can just give me the sport, I'll be interested. Well, now they can, and they have, and I'm on board. So, question
for Peter. How's your tyre degradation this week, mate? Have you? Is it super soft and not going away, or is it hanging in there? Your tyre deg?
It's pretty good, and the tyre pressures are the described minimum. So
exactly, because it doesn't look like your tyres are going away, and maybe there was some suggestion that the new super duper like Cosmo flavoured tyres weren't falling off the cliff as much as they needed to be.
No, they didn't.
Well, we've got before we go, I think Dave has got just one more thing. You pointed out. You've pointed out a name that would be familiar to some people, particularly those inside the motorsport industry would know the name Lachlan Mansell, and you have some exciting Lachlan Mansell news, I believe, Dave.
Well, actually, I definitely don't have any news about Lachlan Mansell, who may or may not be partaking in a production of a show that may or may not be happening on Channel 9. Let's just say, hypothetically, if someone were to Google beauty and geek and Australia and 2021 and promo, if hypothetically, if someone did that, they might spot a familiar face from the media and PR side of Australian motorsport that we know and love. Allegedly. Hypothetically.
I was going to say that.
Beauty or a geek?
That's all just all a theory at the moment. It's just
I couldn't possibly comment, but yes, I believe we're all very much looking forward to seeing a different side of and there is a person who we can neither confirm nor deny may or may not be partaking in some sort of reality TV production in the near future.
Does he, Dave, actually, that photograph qualify for all those terms that you said that may or may not, if you throw up in the air and then drop into a Google toolbar, might add up to that particular photograph?
Well, I'm just disappointed that Stuart didn't find I think it was the Sandown 500 production car race, where he's walking the pits in the Bendon-sponsored Holden Astra team, Lauren Gray pink race suit, which I think was the cornerstone of his LinkedIn profile for a number of years. But full disclaimer, so Lachlan and I have known each other for over 10 years now. We were actually housemates for a bit over a year. He's one of my very good friends. I don't want to speak ill of him. But let's just say Lachlan went AWOL for about 2 to 3 months at the start of this year, and had a very cryptic message on his mobile phone answering service. And myself and a couple of colleagues had some theories about what he was up to, but everyone was sworn to secrecy. But at the moment, the trailer has now been released, and it's almost in the public domain. But we're very much looking forward to seeing how real some reality television can be, particularly when it's someone that we know and love.
So hopefully it's not too edited, and obviously
reality TV edited. It's reality. It's reality.
Yes.
Hopefully, and obviously with his departure from society for about 2 or 3 months, good on him. If you've got it, flaunt it.
Yes.
Or if you haven't got it,
let the memes commence. May there be many of them.
Yeah. Oh, let's get into some of the after parties and go along and yeah. No, actually they cause trouble, don't they?
Well, good luck to him. We'll keep an eye out on
Lockie Watch
that coming up. Lockie Watch. We might run that as a regular feature of the show. Speaking of a regular feature of the show, as if you watched the show earlier tonight, you would recall that we were sort of saying our goodbyes. Well, it wasn't actually goodbye. Second year in a row, we've sort of said our goodbyes, and
faking it
at the very last minute, as we've been sort of rescued from the jaws of death. We at least got 7 days notice this time around, and not 26 hours notice as we did last year. But 7 days is better than nothing at all. I will just say though, however, I wasn't completely lying. At this stage, we're not, because of the late notice and because of everything that was supposed to be happening. You'll hear some announcements if you go onto the Channel 31 Facebook page, and you also, if you stay with our Facebook page as well, you'll hear some announcements of what's coming up in the next month or so. Channel 31 basically are going into a bit of a transition moment right now because they couldn't really plan in advance. So I believe what we're going to have over the next couple of weeks will be some of your regular programs, including In Pit Lane, may not be going to air at their regular time slots and without new programs. We will still be doing programs in the studio. We'll be certainly going in, if we can get in, to the studio on Tuesday nights over the next few weeks, but the show will probably look a little different. We're going to take advantage of this bit of a break from 31 and the pressure of doing a show for free-to-air television every week to do a bit more training and to do a bit more fiddling around and try and get some new members from RMITV, because obviously it's been really, really difficult getting crew in under the circumstances. It's very, very difficult getting in and out of RMIT University at the moment. And yes,
have you got some episodes from 1941 in the can, 1949 in the can ready to go, Brett?
I have nothing in the can. I've got boxes and boxes of unlabelled tapes, and if you think I'm going to...
And here comes Frank Maddox now to the final turn. Oh, he's swimming. He's out of control. Oh, no.
Yeah, we have got a bit of...
I didn't. I'll have to get it out tonight because I was going to use the line with Dave.
No, don't do that. We've heard about the sex tape already. So just keep wording.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I better behave.
Beauty and the Geek.
Oh well, come on, Richard, behave. We were talking about your nuts for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. So, we'll just. I won't.
You mean those strip nuts?
So you've stripped your nuts now too.
You just seem to be concerned about whether Peter was burning all his rubber.
Stuart's bought his own nuts tonight.
Are they salty? Are they? How salty are your nuts, Stuart?
They're a little too much chrome.
Small.
I was going to say they
very small.
They taste a bit sweet and sour, wouldn't they, Stuart?
They're small and they're shiny.
No, that was
brass nuts.
I think that's probably the point that we might. It's getting very late in the night. Some of us haven't eaten. Some of us are having. Some of us.
Peter, can you see us out?
We're losing control. So I think that's about all the time that we have for Full Course Yellow this week. Thanks to everybody for joining us once again. Once again, thank you for your support of Channel 31 and you all played a really valuable part in overturning.
Well done, Brett.
Turning that decision. It was a lot of hard work, and to everybody who was involved in that, thank you, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. As I
while
said,
we're doing, sorry, Brett. One more. What we're doing. Thank you. It's just one more congratulations as well, though, too, and it is a big day. Congratulations to Chris Pither, who has got his Coca-Cola sponsorship, and will be back in Supercars next year, backed up. So he hasn't found a seat yet, but he's got some. So yeah, well done to Chris Pither, who I know through my family, and good luck, Chris. And great to see you back on the grid next year, mate.
Yeah,
I look
hopefully
forward to
we
sharing a
might
Coke
do-
with Chris.
we'll share a
Absolutely.
Coke.
Cola.
And we might try and do that in
Yes,
the weeks to come.
Coca-Cola, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Yes. Yes. I don't know of any other kind, thankfully.
It's just a little bit.
Speaking of
Just next to your
supercars,
nostril there, Dave. Just a little bit of an itch.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, everybody, let's wrap it up there. Thanks once again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Full Course Yellow might be on at an earlier time next week because we're not 100% sure of what the schedule is on Channel 31 at this stage because they're not 100% sure. This is to let you know they basically the lease, they didn't renew the lease, I believe, on the office and studio. So at the moment they're in a transition space and they're just going to try and fill the air time with programming for the next few weeks until everything can settle down and we can start off and make a proper start on a new series of all of our programs, including In Pit Lane. Speaking of which, under the circumstances, it's been very, very difficult for us this year. I'll let you know now that this in a massive financial blow to all of us, but to me in particular. We really would appreciate. We now have something that we can offer you in terms of sponsorship. If you're involved in any sort of motorsport business or any motoring business at all, we can now say that you can now have the power and the reach of free-to-air television. Over 700,000 people watch Channel 31 in the month of May, and we're sure that with the relaunch and with the good news and the publicity that we've had over the last week or so as a result of this decision, that number will only grow again. So if you are interested in sponsoring In Pit Lane or having any exposure on the program, please contact us. Let us know if you're race promoters or categories out there and you're looking to have your events put on Channel 31 and also live streamed. Also come to us. We've been doing this live streaming stuff now for live production for over 20 years now. So we actually, believe it or not, we actually do know a little bit about what we're talking about. We might not look at it time, but trust us, it's amazing what money will do in terms of raising the levels. So contact us. We'd really appreciate that. We'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow and In Pit Lane. We'll be back in the studio Tuesday night, probably at 9 o'clock, and something will be there. We're not 100% sure what it will be yet, but there will be something there. Stay tuned to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and Facebook, but until we see you next week, from all of us here at Full Course Yellow and In Pit Lane, thanks for joining us, and bye for now.